I toured Europe 3 or 4 times. One of the times where we were discussing earlier, I connected with Drew, who's a amazing Canadian R&B singer.
How big is like each event roughly?
They can range. I've done shows for 5 people and I've done shows for 5,000 people. So
it's crazy, eh?
Very, very
big range. What's the
range.
difference? Like, why such a big difference?
Well, I started out flipping toys, actually.
Flipping toys?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Where were you flipping toys?
So just.
Welcome back to another episode of Well Busters. I was almost say I'm a co-host, but I'm your host.
I'm a co-host.
I'm your host, Cody. I don't have my co-host.
And I'm your co-host, Nada.
Today we have a really special guest, Morgan Little. Morgan started out as a rapper touring around Europe, and he also went through a side job of managing a tattoo shop. And right now he has become a specialist in helping real estate investors buy off-market deal as a realtor. So if you're someone who's struggling to buy a good deal in the current high interest rate and high inflation environment, you want someone who's an investor-focused realtor helping you buy off-market deals, then you don't want to miss out this episode. So Morgan, let's start with your tattoo shop.
Okay.
I don't have any tattoo. I see that you have quite some.
I get a few, yeah.
Get a few. And I heard you used to run a tattoo shop.
Yes.
Tell us how that started.
So, yeah, I used to run a tattoo shop. So we were actually the first ever tattoo shop in a shipping container. It's called
Shipping container?
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you guys put that?
So there's a little shipping container village, Dundas and Bathurst.
Okay.
I don't remember the name. Scaddington Court, I believe, is the park there. And so it's called Matchbox Tattoo. First ever shipping container tattoo studio. That was kind of our thing.
Yeah, your theme.
Yeah,
too, yeah.
2 stations in there. So I started it with my best friend. At the time, we had been best friends for many years.
Yeah.
And you know how they say don't go into business with your friends?
It could gone really good or really bad.
Exactly.
Right? Because a lot of time is, you guys are best friends growing up, but you guys never had that hard conversation, right? And you guys probably going to share more. I don't want to butcher anything, but having hard conversation, like I have my brother helping me out as my operational manager. Like some days when I talk to him, he's like, man, if I want to cry after the call. Like, it's like, I know I could have done better, but it's hard still to take it, right? So
for sure. Yeah. I mean, we probably should have had some more conversations before getting into business. You know, it was exciting. He was apprenticing at another tattoo shop, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, let's start our own, you know? So So I put up all the money for everything. I'm not a tattoo artist.
Do you mind
myself,
sharing a little bit how much money you put in to open up a shipyard tattoo?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, it was a fairly minimal investment because it was such a small space, but it was somewhere around 25 grand.
25 grand. You guys buy the shipping container?
We didn't even have to buy the container. That would have been a whole other expense. We were renting it.
Renting it? Okay.
But just to outfit it, buy all the equipment.
Yeah, 25,000
to
start. But you don't do tattoos.
I don't do tattoos.
So what's your role in this job?
So, I mean, I was funding it. I was going to manage the business and, you know, hire out other artists. He was an artist himself.
Yeah.
And then we hired other artists. So, I mean, that was the idea. But, yeah, we just obviously couldn't see eye to eye on certain things. There was a lot of background baggage attached as well, and so
we're gonna go into that. Yeah. But let's go on the good side.
Yeah.
What's the most amount of money you guys make in a day?
So this was early on, right? Like I was involved for the first 1.5 to 2 years, and that's a good question. I don't definitely like because somebody can come in and spend $1,000 at a time. So we're probably looking at anywhere from 3, 4, 5,000 in a day. Yeah.
But what's that annualized? Like when you guys are on your best year, what was the number you guys are hitting?
I don't have the data to back that to go into that because I was only there for maybe a 1.5 years.
1.5 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, expenses were relatively low.
Yeah.
Right. Supplies.
You have like equipment.
Yeah.
Electricity.
Yeah.
You already put out 25,000.
Supplies, right? Like the needles, the ink, there's a lot. There's actually a lot of supplies that go into it. So, but relatively, and that's why I like the business model to begin with. You know, like I went into
payback period. Right? You can get your money back.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
When do you guys say you guys get all the money back?
So because of the way things went, I was bought out at the end and got my money back and got, a portion of an agreed upon amount. So that was within about the year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So would you say you're at a loss after a year and a half, or you're at a gain? You put in 25,000,
right?
Were you at a gain or a loss?
So financially, like numbers wise, I was at a gain.
Okay.
But I mean, time wise, the time I put in.
How much did you gain? Do you mind sharing? How many times?
I gained about 30,000.
30,000. So after 1.5 years, you double your money.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
Yeah.
Shabby.
Yeah.
Oh, we're not counting all the time you put in.
Exactly. I put in a lot of time. And the thing is, like, over a longer period of time, I would have realized, obviously, a much higher gain, right?
Yeah.
So.
Especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
So what went wrong in that business? What happened in that 1.5 years? Like, we're not coming from the part where we're going to laugh at you, but we're trying to have our audience and myself want to learn. Mm-hmm. If you go into a business with your best friend, what could have gone wrong? And, we'll start with that.
Honestly, it's just, like I said, there was a lot of background stuff that I think was attached to it that I don't know if I've even fully unpacked, like why this happened or why that happened. But we just were butting heads on so many things. Yeah. And unnecessarily so. He took on a bit of like he was the one in charge and was, trying to treat me like an employee, or at least that's how I felt. Obviously, as a general rule, as an artist, as an independent person, as an entrepreneur, I don't react well to authority, especially when it's coming from someone who is close to you. Yeah, family essentially. We were very close. So
okay. So it's kind of like the butting heads on who's the main alpha kind of thing.
Yeah, and who should be doing what. All this stuff should have been discussed before. Like these things I learned a lot, and just in terms of laying out roles and responsibilities from the jump is massive, right?
Mm-hmm. So next time you will probably lay out your rules better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else that take away from this?
I mean, it was a good experience just because I learned a lot about bookkeeping. I learned a lot about managing people because our employees were, they're contractors. They weren't employees, so we didn't have to worry about payroll, stuff like that, but just managing people's different personalities, right? Especially artists who are fragile snowflakes. And it was definitely like a challenge. And that's one of my strengths, I think. I've worked in experiential marketing as well. Managing teams touring across the country. We didn't talk about this earlier.
We're going to get into it later on. Don't worry.
So just I have some experience managing different types of personalities. So that was even more of a learning experience in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So, before we start recording, we know that you're actually humbly saying that you're a touring artist. Yeah. At one point, you were touring around Europe, right? Was that before or after this tattoo shop?
So both.
At the same time? Yeah,
I started making music in like the early 2000s.
Okay.
And then built my career kind of spanned about 20 years. And so I'd touring off and on throughout that time. And that was one of the issues at the shop too, is that, I have to be away sometimes. I have tours, I have stuff like that. So that was another issue of contention there. So yeah, that was before and after. And during.
And during as well. So you start making music in the 2000s. Tell us how that journey has come about, and at what point, what was your high at that? In that experience?
Yeah. So lots of highs and lows, a lot of learning.
Share the highs first.
Share highs. Yeah. So, honestly, one of the most recent ones was I got toured Europe 3 or 4 times. One of the times where we were discussing earlier, I connected with Drew, who's a, amazing Canadian R&B singer. We had, it's funny, the tour itself, was not great, but being there is great, and being able to connect with him was great. So a lot of great things came out of it, even though it wasn't a well-managed tour by the people who put it on. But being able to tour in some of these countries because of my music was just a high in itself. So every time I would get to do that, it was incredible. But
how big is like each event roughly?
So they can range. I've done shows for 5 people, and I've done shows for 5,000 people. So
it's crazy, eh?
Very, very
what's
big
the
range.
difference? Like, why such a big difference?
Because that's just kind of all part of the journey, right? Like, I was always willing to go out and perform no matter what. You never know how a promoter is going to deliver. You know, you may go to a show, they promise you, a couple hundred people, and you only get.
So break it down for us, for people like myself who doesn't know what music touring means. And do you do your own promoting? Do you do your own, or do you have your own promoter, or how does that work?
So you are your own.
How do you guys get paid? Like, this is a wealth buster journey. So people always probably want to, I want to know, as a music artist who tour around, for people that doesn't know, you're a rapper, right? So, we all seen all those famous rapper, Lil Wayne, Lil Baby, all that, right? How is this structure? So
there's a lot of ways. Touring has been traditionally one of the biggest ways to get paid. And yes, you're your own biggest promoter. To start with, you're the only one, and then you always have to be as well. You have to be your biggest advocate as well. And then you have promoters who will book you, and you can be paid, a set amount. You can be paid a door split based on the number of people who show up. Going on a tour, you can be, paid again like a split or set amount. Having travel and accommodations and food and everything covered. There's a million different ways that it can be structured, but merch sales, that go along with the touring is a big aspect. And that's where I pulled in a lot of sales.
What would you say is the maximum you make on one tour?
A max amount of money?
Yeah.
I was not a good bookkeeper when I was doing all that.
But you definitely have a rough number, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I didn't keep track of it that well, but we'd be making, anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 a show. And so we go and do 20 shows, over, they're basically every night or every second night. So do the math on that.
So it's like, every other day you guys do one show kind of thing.
Yeah, every day. Sometimes there's days off. And
so 1 to 3K is your takeaway.
Yeah.
Your takeaway.
Yeah. Again,
everyone's already paid for, and that's your net takeaway.
Yeah. And so again, it really depends. Like there's a huge range. Depends how many people are there, how many people you got to split it with. Are you trying to go in luxury, or are you willing to just everyone thug it out in a bus and get there and maximize, right? And lower your expenses.
So like probably 60K for 20 shows. Oh, well, on the high end, or 20K to 60K.
Yeah, that's
kind of thing. Got it.
And that's really like, and it's not always like that, right? It's sometimes you go out and do things for less just to keep it going. It's like when, if we talk about real estate, keeping your guys going, giving them a project to do in the
keeping
meantime
them
to
busy.
keep them going, right? So there's definitely an aspect of that.
So what do you learn from that experience?
Which?
You learn from the music touring experience. What do you learn from that?
I mean, you learn a lot about yourself, right? Like how you manage yourself on the road, not being away from people, meeting new people every night, keeping up the energy because it's draining. I think it's a really like soul searching experience, because you really kind of, not everyone could do it. Most people probably couldn't, right? They like, they like their comforts of home. So you got to be willing to do without a lot of that. But you also, do
you have a partner at that time? Like a girlfriend, whatever?
I've had them like periodically here and there.
Got it.
For sure. Absolutely. So
you're in your young days, right? How old are you right now?
I'm 41.
You're 41.
Yeah.
Okay.
Married,
that's
always
not married.
I'm
maybe
essentially married.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a long-term girlfriend, and we
Got
have
it.
we have a 20-month-old baby. So
Yeah. The reason why I asked that is just kind of give people a context of, you know, the years of things. Because some people said that when you're touring around, it's hard to get married. And do you bring your long-term partner or do you not?
Yeah, I know. My music was always first, right? And I always laid that out. That was always the number one. So even if I had a partner, I'd be like, I gotta go. And so, yeah, that was, and that's part of the discipline, right? Like I was dedicated to my craft above all else.
So you would say that what you learned from this music touring experience is managing yourself on the road.
Yeah.
Because it's draining.
Managing other people, because you bring a team, you bring a photo guy, a video guy, a merch guy, a driver, you know, and then you're dealing with random promoters in different cities, and you're dealing with fans who come up and want to talk, and so you're dealing with a ton of different personalities. So
it sounds like a tough job.
I mean, it
sounds like you really
great,
need
though.
the passion to keep pushing for.
100%, yeah, and that's why I said not most people couldn't do it, right? It's like you have to love it. You know, you have to have a love for the music. And we talked about highs and lows. Going out on the tour can be the ultimate high.
Yeah.
And then I would come home and I'd be sitting on my couch being like, okay, now what? You know, because I was
so empty
around hundreds of people every night, and then all of a sudden I'm alone.
Yeah.
So those were some of the lowest points, just based on being like, okay, and then you start questioning.
You're still
like,
human.
Yeah, exactly.
You're still human.
Yeah.
You need the same thing, but you feel so empty.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Right?
Yeah.
You were like loved by so many hundreds of people you don't know about. And all of a sudden you're sitting home, you're like, man, is this a dream? Right? Am I in a dream, right?
Yeah.
I think like all the big artists went through that phase, right? Of dealing with that. I think Justin Bieber went through a lot of depression and kind of doing some special things.
He's experiencing it on a whole other level that very few ever would.
Yeah. So, wow, that's interesting. And then how do you deal with those kind of things? Because I asked that because even a lot of entrepreneurs, even a lot of people trying to reach your financial freedom, time freedom, and maybe have a full-time job, maybe a realtor, like you guys do a lot of things that you guys show, hey, property sold, but a lot of work are done behind that. It's just the tip of an iceberg that you show, right? Yeah. So on those like days of like sitting home alone and all that, what do you tell yourself? How do you deal with those? And then we're going to transition to the real estate. Like, what is that you learn from that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's tough, and so the way I dealt with it was let's go book another tour. Let's get back out there right away.
Get back around the height.
Yeah, because it's you don't like it's tough, right? It's a lot of growth from between then and now, and like, you know, I wouldn't want to deal with my own thoughts. I'm like, okay, let's move on.
In
to
a
the
way,
next
you're
one.
kind of like, it's kind of like, I shouldn't say that, but it's almost like you're like you're junking to that adrenaline. The moment that adrenaline goes low, you want to go find that adrenaline again,
100%.
kind of thing.
And then there's the creative process too, right? You got to come back from that and switch your mindset into, okay, well, now it's time to create again. I have to make music. And then you have all the pressures of like, well, should I make it sound like this? Because I was just there and those people like this. And so there's the whole creative mindset.
The feedback loop.
Too.
And then you're trying to reflect on that.
Yeah.
Wow. That sounds like that's the way you deal with it. Hey, everyone has different way of dealing with it. If you go back and do it again, would that still be the same way you deal with it? Or
I mean, if I had the knowledge I had now, absolutely not. I would have done a lot of things differently. But
what would you do differently?
I just didn't, like, you don't know what you don't know when you're young, right? Like,
you were what? Well, that was probably like 5 years ago kind of thing?
No, we're talking like 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay.
5 years ago, like, because of COVID, it's like those 3 years are like such a blur, and nothing happened during that time. So, it's hard. What I would do different is hard to say. I just, you know, a lot of growth happens in the ages from that was like 25 to now, right?
Yeah.
Between 25 and 40, I'm a very different person.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like I'm 32, and then most of my friends I have 3 groups of friends. One is a little bit younger than me.
Yeah.
Like some of them are my students, or just people I'm trying to help out like for free and all that. And people around the same age, if they're working a full-time job, sometimes it's hard to keep up our conversations because the things that we care about, the things that we talk about, the dimensions, not it's just very different, right?
Yeah.
They're talking about, oh, I don't like my boss. I don't like about this. I'm like, well, you know what I'm worrying about? The payroll I need to go every month, and then the growth of the business, because it's like a machine, things like that, right? So it's very different things. And the third group is someone who's way ahead of me, like my godfather, double my age, celebrating his 60 years old.
Yeah.
It's kind of like my rich dad, right? You read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad? He's like my rich dad. He gave me a lot of wisdom. Never give me any money, even though I call him godfather. Just a lot of wisdom. Yeah. He shared a lot of mistakes, and he shared a lot of things that he went through. Like, Cody, this is all I went through. This is like the human nature side. Yeah. If you can avoid that, try to find ways to avoid that, because it hurts, right? Yeah. So, like, I was very fortunate in that case to have that kind of experience. So, I don't really know why I mentioned that. I just want to share that people don't just have friends are your own age, right? Yeah. People who are listening to this podcast is because they want to learn from people who are ahead of them. I know so far we went to the tattoo shop, definitely very special. I never had any tattoo artists come on, not even a tattoo artist, a business owner of a tattoo shop, and someone who's doing a music tour, right? Like, we don't usually have that. But now we're coming back to your real estate journey. I remember you mentioned that it was COVID that really got everything started.
Yeah. So, I think we talked about, Drew and I had planned a European tour. We're going to go to Russia, which was exciting. This was pre-war, so different
pre-war,
time.
Different timing. Now probably not the best time.
Yeah. Although I do have a friend who just moved there. But that's a whole other story.
What is he doing there? I know there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, because he met a Russian girl on vacation, and he's very anti-Canada and anti-Trudeau, and so he's gone off.
Okay.
That's another.
Is he doing business there or no?
I don't know what he's doing.
Because like the reason why I asked that is because I just came back from London. My friends in private equity, there's a lot of smart money are floating into Ukraine right now, because whenever there's a war, there's opportunity of rebuild. Yeah. There's kind of like a shuffle of power and wealth. Yeah. And a lot of private equity saw that and start, you guys need money? Yeah. Here's money, but I want equity in it, right? So whenever there's a risk, whenever there's chaos, for sure, there's opportunity, Makes right? Sense, so there's always both ends. Of course, people say that's very high risk. What do you know? Who's going to be the new government? Or it's going to
end at some point.
Yeah. Right? But they're banking on it, and they take calculated risks. Yep. Hope is just a small percentage of their portfolio where they can get a higher return if it works out their way. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that time, we had this stuff set up, COVID happens, and everyone can relate. The whole world shut down. I think a lot of people were like, okay, what do I do with myself? I could either, sit around and, watch Netflix, stock up on toilet paper and drink beer. And you can only do that for so long, right? So, we went out, we shot a couple music videos, which was kind of cool because you don't get to go like downtown Yonge and Dundas when there's no one there very often. So we went and took advantage of that. I did a lot of flipping during that time as well.
Tell us more about that. Flipping, in case you guys wonder, you were flipping real estate, right?
Well, I started out flipping toys, actually.
Flipping toys, okay. Yeah. Where were you flipping toys?
So just online. Seeing stuff because no one was going anywhere, no one was traveling.
Tell us how you do it.
People were home. You watch Gary Vee and his garage sale stuff.
Garage sale. I have Ryan Pineda on talking about him flipping couches before you flip real estate. So I want to hear about flipping toys. How do you do that?
So I've always been into vintage toys, like 80s, 90s collection items, sports cards a bit, stuff like that. So I just saw the opportunity there because everyone was home. They were cleaning out their basements. They were selling stuff and no one was buying because no one was out and about. So I stocked up, flipped stuff, and honestly, it generated a fair income.
Tell us an example of like the biggest flip in toys you had.
I found a woman who had like I did this a couple times. Masters of the Universe, He-Man, 80s toys. She had bins and bins of them that were her kids, and they were like sitting in a shipping container, or basically a shipping container in her backyard that she couldn't move. So I helped her move some stuff.
Yeah.
And she gave me an amazing deal on all these, and I was able to flip those. I was bringing in about $2,500, $3,000 a month off that through COVID.
Flipping toys.
Yeah. And honestly, it's like it took very little work, and I had the time, so it was a good little
So how do you do it?
Discovered.
You buy it from the old lady that has toys from the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah.
What do you sell it?
So they were going prices that were crazy then because people wanted it. People had time on their hands again. So prices were inflated for everything at that point, I think. Mm-hmm. So, it really depends on the figure. They go anywhere from $10 a figure up to like, 50, 60, depending on it. And when you have
it's kind of like a pure profit thing, right? You bought it for almost nothing. A box, what, $100 for a box?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And just get rid of it. Come on.
Get rid of it. They don't understand the value in it. They don't want to be bothered with it because there is some time consuming going through each one and listing it out and talking to people and all that.
So where do you list that? Kijiji? eBay?
Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji. I never really got into eBay. It worked on these platforms. eBay, there's fees involved, so I just never really bothered. But I know that other people that have.
Would that model still work if people want to go out and flip toys?
Now, it'll always work if you want to put the time in. It's not something sustainable. You have to really love it, like we talked about with music. I wouldn't want to be doing it now, and prices are way down, right? Like people don't have the same discretionary income they had during COVID. Everyone had, everyone was getting checks every month, so they were spending it on whatever they wanted.
So, how long were you doing the flipping toys for?
I probably did that for a year and a half, and it just kind of petered out.
Yeah.
During COVID, because again, there was the time to do it. So however long COVID lasted during lockdowns for the most part. But I mean, people had the CERB funds for a couple of years anyways.
Okay. So is that when you get into like real estate and
so that was all happening. It didn't take long before, sitting around, shot a few music videos, did a couple online concerts, which are just not the same as the real thing.
Oh, you did some online concerts?
Yeah.
How does that work?
It's really not the same because you're standing in a
Zoom?
room by yourself, on Zoom, and you just, a big part of live performances is feeding off.
But there's a lot of like websites called OnlyFans or TikTok artists and all that. Isn't that similar to that?
Yeah. OnlyFans is a little different, but you're...
Hey, like the second...
I considered OnlyFans.
Who's that? Who's the second most pay on OnlyFans? What's his name?
Tyga,
right?
Yeah.
He's a rapper, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, it crossed my mind, but it wasn't something that I was going to get into. But that's a different thing. You're performing it, those type of performances aren't necessarily done in front of crowds of people regularly, right? So trying to perform music without the direct feedback, it's a challenge. Same thing, I've heard a lot of comics say the same thing when they're just, trying to do online stuff. It's just not the same as actually touring.
Okay, so how did you get into real estate then? Right,
so I'd been interested in real estate. I'd been looking at investment properties off and on for a few years by the time I got my license.
Did you own any real estate before you got your license?
I didn't.
Where were you spending your money? Do you mind sharing? As a rapper, like everyone's probably want to know what a rapper on touring, flipping toys. Where are you spending your money?
I used to spend my money stupidly on like just the new cell phone or whatever, Louis belts. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No.
I confirm that for you guys.
Yeah, no, I used to just spend. I was a consumer, right?
Yeah. So, are you still that? Who did you learn from? And what changed?
So, around the same time, getting into real estate, getting into personal development, getting into in connected with investment or investor communities, real estate investors, and really, I started my personal growth journey. Around that time, I'd always been inclined to it. I'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad back in the day and stuff, but it didn't
hit you. You're
connect.
like,
exactly.
I just want to be the biggest rapper of all time. Then we solve all the problems. We had money, we paid everything.
Exactly. 100%, man. That's like the mindset that, I think a lot of people are originally start out with, right? And so I just, sat down. I was like, I got the time. Let me get my real estate license. You have 2 years to do it. I think once you sign up, I did it in about 8 months. 7 or 8 months. And along that journey, I connected with originally Cashflow Tribe.
Yeah.
I just must have found them online. So started connecting with real estate investors, got involved in that community. And you know, there's a lot of personal development talk within these communities. I'm sure you're aware. So that really kind of got me going on that.
I'm not
path.
part of the community, but I know the founding members.
Yeah.
And,
but I just mean in general, in this kind of world where, you know, the growth mindset.
It's new for you, for sure. Like for people who are starting out, especially during the COVID time, it's really new. Like the mindset of asset and liability, the mindset of leveraging on the bank's money, the mindset of leveraging someone else's time, someone else's money, right? It's all that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, got my real estate. I started wholesaling while I was getting my real estate license. So that was great. That created.
So how do you start the wholesaling thing? Like what was your first deal?
My first deal would have been in Penetanguishing, I think, in Midland or Penetang.
Is that where you live?
No,
you live in Oakville, right?
I live in Toronto.
Toronto, okay. But why is it all the way up there?
I connected with some guys in Midland in that area. We just kind of like, we were a team of 4 or 5 guys and just started doing it. And they were in that area. So it just made sense. They were out there door knocking, sending out, doing flyer campaigns out there. And so.
Do you guys just book a hotel or something and stay there for a few days?
No, they were living out there. So they were doing the door knocking, doing the flyer campaigns in their area. I was doing disposition. I was building up. It was great for me because I was building up an investor list. They're like, okay, you get rid of it. So I just had to.
So how do you build up your buyers list?
You go out, join the Facebook groups, just people are online. Once you get into that kind of little world, it snowballs, right? You see who's friends with who and who's posting and who seems like they're active. And people, again, had money at that time. So people were looking actively for properties. So I was able to build up a nice investor list because I started working with that group of wholesalers as well as another one. And they were both just like, here's properties, go find buyers. So, you know, I'm pretty resourceful and, you know, I've always just kind of been a hustler.
How big was your buyers list?
So, I mean, probably 2,000 or 3,000. You know, but like people come and go. Some are tire kickers. You learn and keep building it, and so.
Yeah. So what are the most out of the 2,000-3,000? There's probably only a handful, right? So, how do you be most efficient with your time going through those experiences?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and that's part of the learning experience too, right? Is being in contact with these people. You send it out to the list, you send out to your email list, you post to the Facebook groups, you discover who's serious, who's not. And then, you know, connecting with those people and finding out, okay, what is it that you're looking for? Maybe it is this one. If it's not, let me go try and find something that is. And so, you know, it's just building, it's a relationship business as, you know, most things are. So.
And how many like wholesaling deal did you do? Or a deposition of wholesaling? Yeah,
the first year I did about 15.
15? Wow. And what's the average like deal, like how much you get paid? I know you guys work in a team, but what's the split for that?
They range from like, you know, some of them you just want to get the deal done, so you might make like $5,000. But you know, we had wholesale fees of 50.
Split between how many people?
Split usually between 2 to 3 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 15 deal. Each of them, you take home about 10K?
Probably on average, yeah.
10K, so you make 150K, just that.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, why didn't you scale up that?
So I got my license and realized that that's a bit of a bit more challenging to navigate as a realtor wholesaling. So we just kind of restructured is all we did is I had to then. Basically what we did was the wholesaler would get a property under contract. I would then get an exclusive listing with the wholesaler because the wholesaler would then have the right to dispose that property. I would have the right to then market that property having an exclusive listing. And so I essentially did the same thing. It was just in the structuring that we had to, I sat on the phone with
it's kind of like gray area, red tape kind of from the RICO. They were like, hey, wholesaling, realtor, you're kind of conflict of interest for your fiduciary duty.
Right. So the thing is, it just requires disclosure, right? As long as you disclose that you are
a realtor coming in.
Yeah. exactly. So, and if I'm on this side of it, if the wholesaler is my client, then I'm okay. Right.
Yeah.
And so it took some time with my broker to be like, let's check the rules. Let's talk about this. How can we do this? And we figured out the best way.
I know quite some big guys are doing it as a realtor.
Yeah.
Have their team doing it. I know there's ways around it. And
Yeah.
disclosure is one of the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
disclose.
That's it.
So
that's it. And sometimes it's a challenge because sometimes a lot of people who are selling off market, they just don't want to deal with realtors, right? So, you can run.
But the smarter ones will learn how to deal with realtors because they open up such a big buying pool now, right?
Yeah.
Because it's an off-market deal, right? Not all of them are created equal, but most of them do have some kind of value because they have less eyeballs on it, if you know how to negotiate and all that, right?
Especially with such low inventory as we've seen, like a lot of deals we've done through other realtors, right? Like a wholesaler may have an investor list, and so they'll be able to sell through that. But as a realtor, I can also just call up all these other realtor contacts that I have. They'll have a buyer that will,
Yeah. So now that you're a realtor, how does the wholesaling experience help you as a realtor? Or how do you compare these two? Or are you still doing?
Yeah, it's still an income stream for me, for sure.
You still work hand in hand with wholesaler.
Yeah, absolutely.
Helping the buyers.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And where do you see yourself in 5 years?
So in 5 years, I'm focusing on scaling my business as a realtor. Working with wholesalers is an income stream, but it's not where my focus is necessarily. So I definitely want to build a team. We talked about getting, admin, assistant. Those are going to be my first hires. We've recently started a content creation, social media management company, which kind of goes hand in hand. So a lot of realtors are going to be clients. They work well together. So in 5 years, I'd like to exit myself from production and just manage a team. Yep.
So the production team, tell me more about that. What are you guys doing with that? You guys are starting an office in Toronto, help out influencers or maybe realtors or anyone who wants more exposure? Like what's a vision for that? Yeah,
exactly. So it's it's content creation and social media management for small businesses. Everyone knows they need it. They know that they should be doing it, and they know that they don't have time to do it. So it's a very easy sell.
Have you been doing it?
I'm the perfect avatar for it because I do it all myself. I know the time that goes into it. I know the energy.
You have a big following as well?
I have a decent following and is building every day because I'm focusing on it.
Nice. So you basically assuring people, hey, this is a blueprint that got you to where you are today. Like, do you mind if I ask that? Where's your following? TikTok, Instagram, YouTube?
My following isn't that huge because I've been doing it myself. I haven't had a team doing it. Now that I'm putting together a team to do it, it's going to grow. And that's what we can do for other people as well.
So how do you compare? What is the difference between doing it on your own and having a team?
Time. I mean, it's like anything. It's like building the team for anything. It's buying your time back, right? And as much as it's important and necessary for my business, it's taking time away from me being on the phone with buyers or sellers. It's taking away from the core things that are going to grow my business.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's really smart. I know the answer. I have my own team for social media organic. I have my own team for pay ads, separate team, and I have this team for the podcast production. Exactly, so I definitely bought my time back. I do pay money for it. Yeah. Sometimes it's not cheap, but it really helped me pull out my time so I can make the decision and spend time on things that really maximize my return. For example, the strategy of my stock option trading, the organizational skill of scaling up, looking at pay ads from, working on the business, but not in the business. So,
100%.
If you're looking at having a social presence, I do believe that it's still the early stage.
It is,
Like my Instagram, we have more than 10K following. My YouTube, we have like 16,000 K following, but I still think it's the beginning. There's a lot of tweaking involved. Yeah. And don't be shy at starting out. Even just if you don't feel like you have the authority to talk about something, just document the journey while you're doing it. Hey, this is what I'm doing. I don't have the authority to talk about yet, but this is what I'm doing. So when you do have the authority with the track record, then you can back it up, right? But the problem where a lot of people run into is that never done it.
Yeah.
they're probably talking about wholesaling, but they never done one.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, this is how you do wholesaling. Then people like
Yeah.
smash you, right?
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but if you just talk about, this is my wholesaling deal, this is what gone wrong, this is what gone right, this is how much I make.
Yeah.
When you've done 10 deals down the road, you're like, hey, I done 10 deals.
Yeah.
9 of them work out.
Yeah.
So this is what I learned. Now you have the authority to talk about it.
100%. You're hitting the nail on the head with it, because people get frozen. They don't know where to start, right? And you can start with exactly what you're doing. You don't have to be an expert on it to be able to talk about it.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think this is a good wrap. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
Morgan.
appreciate it, man. Thank you. I'm happy to be here, man.
Yeah,
It's great. I already follow you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've been following your journey, and I am interested in learning more about the stock option stuff. But yeah.
We have a boot camp coming up.
Yeah, sweet.
Yeah, if you're truly interested, we have boot camp on September 23rd.
Nice.
He's running it. You can be virtual. You can be live.
Sweet. Yeah.
That's right there. Yeah.
Awesome. Hopefully it'll be a little cooler.
Yeah, we're gonna do it in the boardroom. So, yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool.